Welcome back, everyone. A viewer asked me recently how to replace a background and blend in a semi-transparent veil like the one being worn by this beautiful bride. They wanted to be able to see the new background behind it. Well, let me show you how I did this in Affinity Photo 2. I started with this lovely image I downloaded from pixabay.com. The bride is standing in front of a dark background, which you can see behind her veil. I'll go to File and Place in my menu and select another image from pixabay.com, then I'll drag it onto my canvas. I'll leave links to both pictures in the description if you want to follow along. I'll click and drag on this new layer and drag it down below the bride layer. Alright, next, I want to remove the bride from her background. To do this, I'll go to the Selection Brush tool in the left-hand toolbar. And I'll click on the right square bracket key to make my brush head a bit bigger. I'll paint over her to make the selection. To get this little bit at the top, I'll click the left square bracket key to make the brush head smaller. Next, I'll just go to the Refine tool in the top toolbar to make sure I got everything. Looks good to me, so I'll go to the Output drop-down, select New Mask with Layer, and then click Apply. Alright, now I'll use the arrow-shaped Move tool in the left-hand toolbar to move her over a little bit. Okay, I think she should be a little backlit here with the new background, so I'll go to the Adjustments button at the bottom of the Layers panel, and I'll select Brightness and Contrast. Make sure to click and drag the adjustment layer onto the bride layer so it only affects her and not the background. I'll just lower the brightness down a bit until she fits in with the scene. There, that looks good. Next, I want to blur this background a bit, which I think always looks good in a portrait. So, I'll just select the background layer and then click on the Live Filters button at the bottom of the Layers panel, and I'll select Gaussian Blur. Click on the Preserve Alpha box and then raise the slider up to around 5 pixels. That should do nicely. Alright, next, I'm going to use the mask on the bride layer to paint away some of the pixels on her veil so that the background shows through. This is somewhat delicate here, so I'll select the mask layer and then go to my brush panel and select the finest spray in the Sprays and Spatters category. I'll make sure my paintbrush tool is selected. I'll check that the paint color is set to black, which removes pixels from a mask, and I'll set the opacity and flow to around 30 or 40% so that I only take off a little bit of pixels at a time. Now, I'll just slowly paint away over the different parts of the veil. I've sped the video up about 7 times the regular speed so you don't get bored. All I'm doing here is painting with the grain of the veil, not across it, so that it looks more natural. I'll paint less on, or even skip the thicker areas where there are creases and folds, and I'll paint over the thin areas a bit more. You can increase the opacity up or down as well to make things easier. There really is a fine line between taking too much of the veil off and leaving too much of the old background on. Just take your time and work in small sections. You can always click Command or Control Z to undo, or you could paint white over areas to add pixels back on as needed. Anyway, this is looking pretty good. I could do a little more, but I think you all are pretty bright and get the idea here. Alright, that's about it for today. If you learned something and want to see more of this kind of content, please click those like and subscribe buttons. And if you're feeling generous, this channel runs on caffeine. There's a link to buy me a cup of coffee in the descriptions. Not necessary, but certainly appreciated. Have a great day, everyone.